Welcome to Punch Keys Podcast. I'm Poppy Minix, your co-host, bringing you blunt talk for the fiction novelist.
And I'm Cass Kay, your other writerly co-host. If you love to ramble about writing and need a tribe, you found us.
Are you ready? We're uncorking now. Let's talk about punching those keys.
It is time.
It's time.
Podcast time.
I love podcast time. And I love that you do
those
intros.
keys. Oh, what?
Have I told you that I love that you do intros? Because I am so not good at knowing any time as to when to walk into the conversation. So thank you, Cass, for being my intro woman.
And I am sorry, listeners, that I sing a lot of them.
I love it. It's not bad. It's great.
am really bad at singing, but it doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. Oh, my favorite is when I sing as horribly as I possibly can.
Oh my gosh.
That's the best. I whale sing to my husband. It's so hot.
My husband did that to me. You guys can get together and start an off-key chorus. It's going to be fantastic.
Oh, I would be a rock star at an off-key chorus.
I love it.
I can nail that shit.
Solo part. Here we go.
You know it. I'm going to solo over someone else's solo. That's how that goes.
Oh, fantastic. Nailed it. I was you were all up in this off-key chorus.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Sorry. Little side chat there. We are here to talk to you not about singing, I swear. We are here to talk to you about your query package.
Yes.
And not because you're querying. You're writing your first draft or a draft or I don't know, but you're probably not querying, and that's when we want to talk to you about this.
Plot twist. I know, right?
Dun, dun.
Yes.
All right, so first of all, what is in a query package? Which are some main things that you need? Obviously, a query letter. We're probably not going to go into a query letter on this one.
No, not on this
one. But you need a query letter. I don't know. Use Google. Go figure it out. Maybe we'll do another episode on a query letter.
Oh, yeah. We'll totally do a query package as one on, all the good stuff on how to query. But
we just said we were doing a query package one.
I know, that's true.
Okay. So there are 3 things in your query package that we wanted to talk about tonight.
Yes. Super important things that can help you from your first draft. Aww. You're going to pick your log line, your tagline, and your synopsis.
Okay, so help you in your first draft.
Yep.
Yes, you heard her right. That's what she said.
Yep.
So we found this cool little thing lately where, Poppy found it, and she told me about it, and I tried it, and I totally believe her. Or I plan on trying it, but I like to avoid my synopsis, so I'm just totally on her boat.
Oh, the synopsis.
So it's when you're writing a first draft, sometimes you get in the thick of it, right? And it's especially halfway there, 3/4 of the way there, it's just everything is going on, all the plots, all the character arcs, all the world building, the plot arcs, there's so much, I feel so lost. And it's your words and your novel become this sea that you're just drowning in to sort through and figure out.
Yeah.
You're pretty normal.
Ugh, yes.
So Poppy found a really cool tool where she started working on her synopsis, her logline, and her tagline at this stage of the process instead of
I did
later on. How did that work out for you, Poppy?
Gosh, it's worked out great. I mean, I've started doing the synopsis actually part of the plotting process, and that seems to be working out well. But even in the first drafts, once I finish a first draft, I will go through and create a synopsis to help sort of look at it as just a Cliff Notes version of what I've written and figure out where my major plot points are and who my major characters are.
What's the basic format of a synopsis?
Okay, so your synopsis is basically, I call it the Cliff Notes version. It's a summary. So your synopsis is going to be a summary of your novel. There's different sizes of synopsis. I stick with a short synopsis, which is about 500 words. And then I go with a longer version, but not the longest version. But I go with a longer version, which is a 2-page synopsis. So you have 1-page and 2-page synopsis. What I do for a first draft or even in pre-planning is I'll do a 2-page synopsis, which is where I go through and I kind of plan out what the heck is happening in your book. It's your plot points. So I go through and figure out what is going to be these inciting incidents, these moments that stuff's going to change. What is happening in your entire book? It's really, really helpful for me. One, in later stages when I'm getting ready to query, is I already have something that's pretty much done and I just need to tweak it, which is really, really nice when you're like, I am ready to query. I am so excited. And the synopsis for me, and this might change within like the next year or so, but right now, you've never heard somebody whine so much ever, unless you've heard me making a synopsis. Like I am just like, oh, synopsis, I hate them. Like I get so whiny about it. And I'm just annoyed at the fact that I have to go through and basically take each chapter and create one freaking sentence on what has happened in the entire chapter. And then I have to take all of those sentences and put them together and create this 1,200 word document where it's just, it's so frustrating to take this 80, 90, 100 word novel and be like, oh, just kidding. You have to do the entire thing and tell me all about it in 1,000 words. Good luck to you. It can be very difficult and very daunting, but it can also be so incredibly enlightening onto what is important in your book. And that's kind of been the really important thing for me. And the thing that's really shined out of my synopsis is I'll go through my chapters and I'll be like, okay, this happened in this chapter. Cool. This was the main plot of this chapter. This was the main thing that happened in this chapter. Oh, this person was introduced. Okay. 1 or 2 sentences per chapter. I'll put it all down. I'll look at everything that happened on one single page and be like, okay, now let's go through and see what everything is super important. And all these major points that is like the absolute necessity of what your novel's about. And that has been just an incredible tool for me that gets me really seeing where the novel's going. And so if I get stuck even in an early stage, or if you're like me and you start writing and then all of a sudden everything comes to you and all the thoughts are there and you're like, and you start writing down what you think is potentially going to happen in a chapter. If you write a synopsis, oftentimes that'll just settle itself out and you'll know everything that's going on in your book. So you can use it in different methods, but I like doing it earlier than later. One, because I gripe and whine about it even more when I'm ready to query and I'm frustrated because I have to go write a 1,200 word synopsis and I don't have anything there and I'm excited and I want to send it out, but I can't because I have to go write this thing. And I'm like, it's really nice to already have something in there that you can just poke at. Gosh, that's great. And because it helps when you're in your early stages and when you're trying to figure out what the heck is most important to your book.
So one thing I really like about synopsis, I found, so I was when I read a synopsis, you'll have like your plot A and you'll have your plot B and plot C and other things going on and different arcs with different characters and things. But your synopsis really is showing the path of plot A, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So your synopsis is going to be the problem that was presented,
mm-hmm.
how it was solved, and
yes.
the path from point A to point B.
Yeah.
This is like the main heartbeat of your novel.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's super easy to let other plot lines, side character stories, tangents, flashbacks, back history really slow down your pacing or chunk into your novel. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a synopsis is a really great place to be able to problem shoot those and to actually see them. Because it's hard to see it when you're in there. Like, it's absolutely needed. It's absolutely needed. Oh, I have to have this in the scene, or I have to have this flashback. I have to have the aunt revealing how she ate her twin in the womb. Okay, so whatever it is, you're like, I have to have this in there, right? But when you're writing your synopsis, you have to cut everything down except for that plot A.
Yes.
And it helps you let go of things that you think you need. As much as it's a great shock factor that the aunt ate her twin in the womb, and it's this fun little weird, awkward quirk.
Does it matter?
If you had like a whole chapter entirely about that, you're emotionally attached to it, but when you go to write your synopsis and nothing in that chapter fits into the arc of this plot A, you can flag that as a problem.
That helps a lot. Yes.
And it's because it's really hard to see, especially when you get super attached to different parts of your stories and you bring stuff in because there's some message or something that means something to you. It's really hard to see that, and it's really hard to see why it does or doesn't fit. And if you're writing that synopsis and all of a sudden there's this sore thumb that means so much to you, but not, it's a really good indicator. It also will show you too if you didn't actually have a good arc for your plot.
Yeah, if you can't find where your plot points are and if it's not cohesive.
And you can't figure out how they got over this hurdle, all of a sudden magically the solution was there.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to show in your synopsis too, because you have to be able to boil it all down and say exactly what happened. And if you can't, it may not be there is why. So that's a really great tool to use, I'd say, for pacing. It's a really good one for pacing.
Just to know like what's important and what's not, because it's so easy, and it depends on the writer, but sometimes for some writers, it's so easy to just put in all these like amazing things about scenery or additional characters or people who are not even named, and just like you want to describe every ounce of their clothing and stuff like that. But do they actually matter to your plot and to your main character? Is it showing something? Is it moving things along? And it's
depending
really cool
on your genre, there's going to be some genres where you can get you have more leeway and berth for that type of exposition, but it still has to also, that plot A has to be in there with it.
I agree.
All right, I'm ready to move on to the next one. Are you?
Oh my goodness. Sure. Let's move on.
I'm kind of excited. I may or may not have written up some fake taglines and loglines.
Well, that's very exciting. Okay.
Of like 2 of my favorite movies. I'm going to see if you can guess them.
Oh. It's like a test. Uh-oh.
It's not very hard to guess.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. Okay, so I didn't know like the difference between a tagline and a logline. I actually didn't even know what a logline was for a really long time. Somebody was like, "What's your logline?" I'm like, "Is that like the tagline of the book?" They're like, "No." And I'm like, "I don't get it." Like it took me a bit to figure out if you're relatively new in writing, or even if you're not, and you've even sent out queries and stuff like that, and you don't know, tagline, logline. That's totally cool. But we're here to explain it and the differences between, because it took me a really long time to figure it out as well.
Well, I mean, Poppy's here to explain it. I'm just here to give you goofy loglines and taglines.
I am very excited about your goofy taglines and loglines. Okay, so a logline is basically a brief, typically 1-sentence summary of your book.
I would actually say, okay, you don't have to do this, but there's a little bit of, in my opinion, a little bit of like sparkle dust magic that happens if you try it this way. There's a very specific formula for a logline.
Yes.
And 27 words.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so like 27 words is like the magical, and you can look it up. I've read it places. I did not make this up. I got it from other places. For some reason, it always worked. Like that's the magic number because it helps you trim all the excess stuff you didn't need in there, and it helps you bulk it up to have something meaty and interesting. 27 words is the magic. I have the formula. Do you want the formula?
Yes, obviously I want the formula.
Okay, so the formula, there's 2 different formulas. 3 different formulas I've found. I've done quite a bit of research on loglines. I find them really interesting. But Formula A is what I call it, and it's just the one that works the most. And I guess maybe I should put this in the episode description because you guys aren't going to retain this. But when incident occurs, character with role and motivation pursues goal only to discover that opposition threatens disaster.
Yeah.
And so what it does in this formula, there's certain words that are underlined: incident, character, role, motivation, goal, opposition, disaster. And you fill those in. You plug in what those are for your story.
Yep.
And you have your logline.
Like protag, plot, antagonistic force, or conflict.
And the logline is super, super important for when you go to query. I mean, the logline's the heart of your query letter.
Yeah, it's kind of your elevator pitch, and that's how I remember it. Logline, elevator pitch. Yeah, I know elevator starts with an E, whatever. But that's how I remember it, because it is, there's a big difference between logline and tagline. That helps me remember it, is that your logline is not for your readers. Your logline is for agents and publishers and somebody that you're pitching your novel to in order to sell it.
It is not the little short line on the back of the book or the front of the book that makes you want to read more. That's not what your logline is.
It's not, because that's your tagline.
Yep. It's like the line at the bottom of the movie poster. That's your tagline.
Yes. Yes. You want the teaser. That's how I remember tagline. Teaser, tagline. Because your tagline is, it's just a short text that is to clarify a thought or a theme of what's happening. And you're plucking at emotions and drama at that point. You're not plucking at a sensible, dry explanation of your book. You are trying to pull people in to make them wonder, to be like, what is that all about? That's really interesting. Huh.
Okay, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, I have two. The first one.
Which ones? Are we talking about loglines?
I will give you a logline or a tagline. I have one for each movie. I did two movies.
Let's do loglines. I want loglines.
Okay. So these two movies are in my top 5 all-time favorite movies. That's how
awesome. That does not necessarily mean that I've watched them, but yes, let's
see how that goes. You better have seen both of these movies.
Ooh, okay. I am a little nervous.
Oh, okay. I have a character name in this one, but I'm going to replace it with a pronoun so that you don't guess it right away.
Got it.
Okay, so these are supposed to be funny or like joking.
Awesome.
Okay. When paying the rent is important and his best skill is surviving hamburger face attack, he must return the hits instead of just taking them if he wants to keep his dirty mattress on the floor he calls home.
I have no idea.
You're never going to guess that.
What?
I had too much fun doing this.
All I can think is the Hamburglar at McDonald's, and I'm like, that can't be right.
I purposely made him so goofy. Okay. I'm going to get the tagline. See if you can get it with that.
Okay, let's see with the tagline. Let's see that teaser. All right.
You'll get it from this one. I'm going to change the name for a pronoun again, but there's a nickname in it it should give you. So in the ring or on the streets, he always gets back up. Hard times have made this Italian stallion hit harder.
Rocky, obviously. Okay, that's awesome. Very, very nice.
Sorry, I'm having way too much fun over here.
I really like it. And now your logline makes more sense. So break down your logline for me. What did you do to create your logline?
I have another one. I'm not done with this game.
Okay.
Okay, one more, and then we'll be done. I promise. Well, here we go. Okay. When two single parents decide they're better together, their adult mooching sons have to share in their dumb privilege, unless they can find a way to break up the happy couple.
I think I know what that one is. I am fairly certain. Step Brothers?
Ah, you got that one.
Yes.
And the tagline for it was, it's hard enough to live in your parents' basement at 30. There's no need to add a stepbrother or a step-parent. Hard pass.
Oh, I like that. Very nice.
All right. So, yeah. The logline, you have to give your problem and what's at stake if it's not solved.
Yep.
I really like that you have to give, like, the role of what the character does. Mm-hmm. So when this happens, it's usually so you start with your inciting incident.
Yep.
When this happens, this character with this unique defining characteristic, which is their role usually, has to overcome this. Otherwise, here are the stakes.
Very nice.
And this is stuff that is really important to know about your story. And if it helps you and if it makes it more fun, I would highly recommend doing it in a comedic way.
I like that a lot. I think that's really good.
That doesn't have to be the one that you use in your query package. I remember one time Poppy was she had a novel coming out and she was working on loglines. And she asked our writing group to give some funny comedic loglines, and it was so fun.
Yeah, that was fun. We did the basically faux loglines.
Yeah. So if you're trying this out to like take the pressure off of you and stop thinking about, oh, I'm going to show this to an agent, or oh, this is what saying it is. Try going a farce route, or like
wrong answers only.
Do it all the wrong ways just for fun.
Yeah.
Make yourself giggle and laugh. And then you kind of ease into it and you feel more comfortable being like, okay, well, that was funny, but I found an interesting route to the story in this funny line. Right.
And I think the importance of it is the fact that you just boiled your entire novel down to 27 words.
That's amazing.
Like, that's amazing, because that is sometimes all the time that you have to talk to somebody. If you're stuck in that's why we call them elevator pitches. If you're stuck in an elevator and you're going from floor 4 to floor, 15, then you only have 18 seconds or whatever to just say, this is what my book's about. And it's really difficult sometimes, especially when you're starting out, where somebody asks you what your book's about and you're like, oh, God.
Right? Because it's about so many things.
Yeah.
There's so many cool things going on, and how do you sum it all down? And when they want to know what your book is about, they basically want to know the plot A main thing. I'm sure that your main character's baby sister is really cool. I mean, how many babies can turn their face into emojis? Only her. So, like, she's super awesome and super unique and this great thing that you've done. But that's not what your book's about.
Unless it is, and then you just bring that up. But, like, nonetheless, you have to know what your book is about. And
don't get distracted by the awesome sideness going on when you're looking at pitching and boiling things down.
Yes. So it's such a great tool in the beginning, I feel like, or when you have your first draft complete, or even when you're struggling to get it, is like, what is this about? And we always ask ourselves that. And if somebody came up to you tomorrow and said, hey, oh my God, I heard you were writing. What's your book about? What the heck would you say? And so it is really great to really think about that and consider, what is my book about? And be able to lock that down in like a sentence or two is just incredible. What's your theme? What does it mean? What is the importance of it? What is it all about in just very short scale? So your synopsis is going to be like your Cliff Notes version. This is big and everything that's happening. And you can have two versions. You can have a long version where it's like, yep, this is everything that's going on in a dry, not voice way. Like, okay, well, while you might have this beautiful, flourishing, amazing conversation over here between two people, over here it is, he talked to her about the death of his dog. Whereas it might be this beautiful, literary, amazing piece, you're actually just going to dryly put it down, because that is really what it's about right here. It's not how incredibly beautiful and, it is and what prose you used and the voice that you used. It's about your story. So take everything that you've done from your book and throw it into a story, and then take that giant story that you've done from your synopsis and boil it down into a couple lines. What is your book about? Easy, right?
A few weeks ago, I did this online Zoom seminar thing. Mm-hmm. It was through Quail Ridge Books, and it was about queries. I know, we're not talking about queries, but there was a piece of advice in it that I think is really relevant. It was Scott Rington, Reigntgens. He's a sci-fi fantasy writer. Mm-hmm. And so he was talking about queries, and he mentioned an interesting thing, and I keep thinking of it because you keep talking about theme. And you're like, well, what's your theme? I really liked that he actually talked about trying to take your theme out of this stuff. Because themes are vague.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So your theme is that love conquers all. That.
Oh, well, just think about what your theme could possibly be and twist it into the personal.
Yeah. So, and when you're looking at it, the message you're trying to give, a lot of times when we sink that down to one sentence, we end up with something really vague that doesn't say anything, that makes people kind of zone out.
That is definitely an issue that I see oftentimes when I'm critiquing summaries and when I'm critiquing blurbs and synopsis, is trouble came and it just upturned her life. And it's like, okay.
Exactly. And
what does that mean?
Yeah, it doesn't hook anyone or bring anyone in.
No. Like, okay, her life got upturned. Why? Yeah,
what is the trouble? What's at stake with this trouble? What does she have to do to overcome it?
Right.
These are the things that matter. Yeah. And when you're boiling it down. And it goes back to that conversation, which we all know is Poppy's favorite thing ever, is about being coy. There is no room for being coy with your logline and with your synopsis.
No, you do not be sneaky about information to try to hook people in or tease them. There's no teasing here. Just put the raw facts down on your paper.
You can play a little bit with the tagline. I wouldn't play with vague phrases that don't say anything, but you can definitely be a little coy. Not in the synopsis, though. Not in the logline. The point is to show exactly what the problem is and what's at stake and why it's important.
Yes. There's none of this like sneaky cliffhanger stuff. Don't do that in synopsis at all. There is no, and they opened the door and couldn't believe who it was. Next paragraph. You
only have so many words to begin with. You've just wasted like 8 of them. 8 words matter when you only have 500.
Yeah,
and you're trying to describe a whole book. So you have to, and that's another thing too that's really great with synopsis writing, is that helps you trim down words.
It does.
Every prose class I have taken says better prose, stronger prose is when you say something with the least amount of words.
Yes. And so when you're forced to do that, it actually changes your brain. And then when you continue writing, you actually look at stuff differently and say, ooh, I don't need that word. That's just like frivolous material right there.
And it's all the filler words, all of the non-specific words, all of the that are just cluttering up the sentence usually and making them harder to read. When you have to boil a whole book into one page, you start figuring out where those are and getting rid of them.
Yes, absolutely. You start rewording your stuff to make sure that you cut it down as much as possible. Because, I mean, even when you're in genres and stuff, so we talked about that before, where if you are writing specific genres, you need to stick with word counts. It's the same way. You can't be going 10, 20, 30,000 words over genre expectations or under for that matter, and trying to find that sweet spot. It's the same way with synopsis and with taglines and loglines.
Oh, and real quick too, the synopsis word count is the same no matter how long your novel is.
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
So if you have like a super long novel, you don't get a super long synopsis.
Some people say that you can. I completely disagree, but that's just me. Every synopsis that's ever been requested of me, and this is my personal experience, not anybody else's. Some people be like, well, you know, I have like a 20-page synopsis because I had a $200,000 had a 200,000 word count book. So it's a page per 10,000 words. And I'm like, no. I've never been asked for anything over 2 pages. That's just me though. I'm in the romance genre. I've never been asked for more than that. Maybe some genres are, but I'm kind of doubting it in this day and age, because I think that even in general, in the era that we are in, we do not have the attention span to sit down and read a 20-page summary on a book.
I query fantasy.
Yeah.
I've queried a ton of fantasy, and I've filled out a lot of them do the query
Which
manager,
can get long.
where you fill out the forms and stuff. Never have they allowed a 20,000. And I've queried, I don't know, over 70 different fantasy agents. I have a lot of rejections under my belt, guys. But I've never seen it where they allow for a longer synopsis.
Right.
Because your word count's big.
Yeah.
And that's my experience. Maybe I just didn't find the ones that did that. But fantasy genre does tend to run a little bit longer.
I haven't heard of anybody needing more than a 2-page. Most synopsis, from what I've heard around and people saying, you know, who they're querying to and everything else has been, we get 2 pages. But I think that in general, even if somebody does allow you to have a 20-page synopsis, it's a really great thing to be able to boil your entire novel, to force yourself to boil down your entire novel into 2 pages, because it helps you cut words. It helps you figure out what the main beef is of your novel. It's really great to do it early on as well, because it can really focus your points to be like, you know what, this really is what my novel is about. So if you're going into second or third draft edits, you're like, you know what, this is what I'm going to focus on. It's not going to be these 3 things, these 4, these 5, these 6 plot lines that I have going on. It's about this one plot line, and everything else is there, and it adds to the world, and it's great when you're in it, but it's not technically what the story is about. It's about this one very specific thing.
And that doesn't mean you have to get rid of all the other, you know, plot lines or flavor and everything. But it does mean that maybe if that particular sideline has half a chapter, maybe it can be trimmed down. And that, especially if you're going word heavy, like if you're really over your word count. And I know there are a lot of people who go over their word count, and getting rid of any of their words is just like one of the 7 deadly sins. They just don't want to do it.
This is a really good exercise for those people.
It is. It's really, really helpful. We always talk about we talked about building like your protagonist and your antagonist, and there is all of this backstory and history. It's the same like with your plot and your world. There's all of these other things going on. It's a big world, right? And there's all these other backstories going on. But just because they're happening and just because you know they're there doesn't mean that the reader needs to know all of it. And a good gauge of what to focus in and what to trim back on is what makes it into your synopsis.
I agree. I like that. So we have our 2 sort of dry information items that are really important to kind of figure out what your novel is about. And that's your logline and your synopsis. And then you have your tagline, which is your teaser, which is also really important. Why would somebody read your book? Why would they read your book after reading one literal sentence how can you drag them in?
So a really great exercise for taglines is PitMad on Twitter.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
If you haven't checked it out and you have like a novel you're looking at and you want to get a feel for what agents are out there, what other people are writing, what's going on, and you just want to like engage with the writer community, join Twitter and do the PitMad. Is it PitMad or is it...
Yeah.
What's the other one that's tied to it?
There is, oh my gosh, Pit Wars?
Is that
War.
it?
I think so.
Yeah, Pit Wars, PitMad. There's a
Pitch War.
couple different events there. But PitMad is great because you get...
That's it, Pitch Wars. Pitch Wars and PitMad.
You get 3 opportunities within the day to use one line to throw out there and see what the feedback is, if people would bite your novel with that one line. And the great thing is it's a lot of people will retweet your one line if they think it's great. They'll comment on it. They'll talk to you. It's a great way to talk with other authors to get a gauge for what's interesting.
Find people in your genre.
It's also really depressing if you don't get any interest. It happens. Hang in there. And a lot of times it could be because you need to work on the tagline, not necessarily because the concept of the novel is a dud. And so remember that too if you're building this query package, you're working on a tagline, you're working on a logline, a synopsis, or whatever it is, a query letter, and you share it at different stages for different things, different events, or just with friends or whatever, and there's no interest in it. That's not your novel they read. This is your attempt at boiling down the whole best parts of your novel and the reason they should read it.
Yep.
You may not have boiled it down right.
True.
And go back and try again. Don't throw out the concept for the novel and be like, this is junk.
Yeah.
Or don't stop writing because it's super hard when you love this concept or are so excited and you think for sure everyone's going to see the brilliance in it and it's crickets. It sucks. It's hard to swallow. I totally get it. But go back and try and do it again. Try and look at a different way of angling it, a different teaser line, a different, have you really nailed down what the real problem is in the book and how it's solved? Have you stated the stakes?
Yeah.
Have you made those clear and understandable? Or did you use vague terms and words because they sounded pretty, but really they weren't giving anything specific for people to visualize of the story?
Right. That's exactly right.
Sounding pretty is great. I would love to sound pretty more often in my prose. Being able to communicate an interesting story in a few amount of words isn't always about pretty words. It's about effective words.
It's about effective emotional response words.
Yeah, emotional response. There we go.
It's about using everything you can to make somebody attach to your character and to your story in a literal sentence. And that sounds like daunting and impossible. It's not impossible. You know, you just need to take like what means the most about to your character. You know, what is this about? What are the stakes? What is like the conflict that is, and it can't be aliens are coming and they're going to take over the world. There's my tagline. It's not that. Like dive so much deeper into what is it literally about.
I would also recommend with the tagline too, like you said, it is super daunting. Go the comedic route.
Yeah.
Make your tagline about aliens are coming and the only way to be safe is to be drunk.
Right?
There's a movie about that, by the way.
When aliens come, get drunk. There's your tagline. Like, wait, okay, hold up. So where does this go? Where does this go deeper? And then start tweaking it. Like, what is it really about? But ease in. It's going to take some time.
Have fun, though. Make your farce ones. Make your spoof ones. Even if you think you have. So this happened. I did this maybe it was the one before. I've done one Twitter PitMad. Mm-hmm. Super great experience. And I was preparing the week before the different pitches that I wanted to do, my different taglines. Mm-hmm. And I wrote one and I edited it and worked on it. I'm like, this is perfect. I don't need 2 more. I just need this one. It is absolutely fantastic. But I get 3 chances. I should probably write another one. So I went and wrote another one.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Went and wrote another one. I'm like, oh, I like that one too. But the first one's the best. It's the best. And then I shared the 3 pitches with our writing group. And I was like, no one likes the one that I thought was like golden perfect. Everyone loved this other one that I was like, huh? Yep. And so even if you think you have the perfect tagline, logline, try a couple different variations.
Yes.
Try different ways of doing it where it's
fits.
completely unique and you're coming at it from a different angle, because you might be surprised in what you find.
And pitch it to your writer friends and pitch it to your beta readers and see if they bite and see if they're like, ooh, what is that about? I want to know more. Not just because they're being nice, but because they actually want to know more.
And if they're being nice and it's something that doesn't interest them, hopefully they come back with like, well, what does it mean when you say they find their best friend? That's one of those vague terms that doesn't really emotionally attach you.
No. It's
And
like,
so,
okay, good for them. Cool.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll poke and ask questions at you about it that help you zone into where you need to be more specific and spice it up.
Absolutely. Or if they've read it, I mean, ask them what really stuck out to them and what was the most important idea and, you know, how they felt about it. And if they're reading your lines, they'll probably give you suggestions as well. I'm like, oh, well, you know, but this part was really huge, and your synopsis as well. I mean, there were so many cogs. There's so many cogs, and trying to find the most important ones that actually make the watch function is what your goal is. And so it really does help so much. And sometimes you might love it, but I don't. I can tell you that now. Like, I will do it because I need to and because it helps me so very, very much, but I will whine about it all day long because it's frustrating for me. I'm like, oh, like, how can I take all of this and smush it down into this tiny little piece of work? But man, does it help.
I'm a very too concise writer. So for me, like, it's kind of fun.
I think
Make me
awesome.
have to put a chapter through Pro Writer Aid, and I'm going to just whine to you for hours. I'm going to be
so funny?
So cranky and frustrated. I know it's super important, and I'm learning, and it's teaching me stuff. But, oh my God, I hate this so much.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I hear you.
And it's okay. Everyone's going to have different things that they like and don't like, and just do the things you don't like, even if you don't like them. Push yourself. Get better.
Yep.
Even if this is one of those things where you're like, I'm not querying yet. I don't have to send this stuff out. I don't have to do anything with it. Push yourself out of your normal box of how you get things done and see if this shows you some different aspects that it hadn't before. Be brave. Be bold. Do something new.
I'm also going to be a butt, and I'm going to stick blurbs into this little bit as well.
Oh, nice.
Because your blurb is going to basically be an extended tagline. I mean, your blurb is going to be a couple paragraphs, depending on how you set it up.
It's like the back of the book, right?
The blurb is like the back of the book. So that helps as well. Like, how would you sell this to a reader? What do they need to know that's super important about your book? And what is going to bring them in? Are you going to ask a question? Like, how in the world is this person going to get out of this issue? And you can't say that. Be very, very specific. But obviously don't give anything away at the same time. Your synopsis is going to give stuff away. Your blurb is going to pull people in and be like, you need to read more. That's right. You want to read more.
I love that you said the blurb is for the reader, because I think the taglines for the reader, but the logline and the synopsis are definitely for the publisher, the agent, the editor.
Yes.
So the blurb, I'm curious if you agree with this. I think zoning in on that would help you nail down your best hook.
That will definitely help with your first chapter, because if somebody reads your blurb, they're going to go immediately, hopefully, to your first chapter, and they're going to check it out. And if it's nothing like the blurb of what they expected, they're going to be like, you're going to lose them. So make sure that like your blurb and your first chapter sort of coincide and exist in the same tone. Now is the time you can use your voice.
You can probably even slip in your inciting incident, the hook that keeps them going. All that first quarter of the book has to be exciting and interesting enough to reel in the reader, and your blurb is the way to test if it does.
Absolutely. And your blurb is where you can let your voice of your characters fly free, which is really fun, because you want people, this is a sample. This is a teeny sample of your work that you are throwing out to people who are going to hopefully want to read more of what you have to offer. So don't be coy. Let them know what's happening in this book. Let them know that you're going to have this specific voice, and this is what hopefully they're looking for, depending on the reader. It's
also,
a sample.
If there's a trope that
throw that trope out
readers,
there. Yes,
just own it.
Own that trope. Let that go in there as well. That goes sometimes with your tagline as well, depending. But yeah, let all that stuff fly, because that's what's going to grip somebody who's looking at it. Because if it's just, oh, this character came across a bad guy doing bad guy things, and they needed to correct the bad guy things and save the world. Okay, that along with 1 million other books.
All right, I'm putting that book back on the shelf. Let's see if there's something a little more interesting.
I think I've read that one 70 times. Make sure that there's something that is interesting that's going to draw your character in. Same with your tagline. Bring it to where it's like, oh, this is really gonna pull somebody and really pique some very serious interest into what the heck this could be all about. Then they're going to read your blurb, and your blurb is going to extend that out a little bit, and it is going to show a little bit more on what the stakes are, who your characters are, why it's important, and why they need to read it.
It's like you're the Wicked Witch in the candy house, and you're leaving little crumbs to entice the readers, the little children to come in.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally just went there.
You did, poor writer that you are.
But we're leaving little candy crumbs, and that's what it is. It's a tiny, tiny speck of a crumb for your tagline. It's a bigger, like a whole peppermint candy for your blurb. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully they come into the house and gorge on your story.
Yeah, and make that first line pop so that they have to read the second line, and so they have to read the third line, and so they have to figure out what's going on with this character and what the conflict is, and then leave them with this question. Are they actually going to make it out of this alive? How are they going to deal with this massive conflict that's happening? And that really pulls a reader in where they're like, oh, I don't know. How do they do that? I need to read the first chapter. I need to go and I need to jump into this thing and see what's happening.
That's the best. Fun. It's like the dream.
It is the best. It is the dream, and it gets easier the more you do it with your blurbs. And if a blurb isn't working, obviously change it. But when you're just starting out, make blurbs. What is this about? Why would I want to read your book? Pitch it to me. This is a blurb, and your tagline is how you're pitching to somebody like, you want to read this because this is the interesting factors of it. And there's a surprise. And I'm going to give you a hint of the surprise. I'm not going to be like, and there's a surprise. Don't say that.
But Poppy told me to. She told me that's how I do it.
Oh, it's a surprise. Great. Thanks. Woo. Hide in what the heck is the surprise? It is so easy when you're starting out to be like, but everything is a mystery. And if I am more mysterious, then people are going to read my work. I know. I've done it. Oh my gosh, I've done it a bunch. I think everybody's done it. Everybody who starts out is like, I am being so mysterious. I'm like, no, you're just being confusing because people don't know. Don't give it all away, but give enough to where it's going to be like, oh, these are my favorite tropes. Oh my gosh, that seems really, really interesting plot line. And I am so intrigued as to see what the heck is going to happen with that one. And then they left me with this really sneaky little question, and now I have to know what's happening. That's what you want. That is literally the goal.
I mean, obviously that whole storyline was about the aunt who ate her twin, right?
Clearly it was, Cass. Yep.
All right, so looking for the formats and how these things are specifically done, you can Google this stuff.
Absolutely.
Google query letter, tagline, logline, blurb.
How to write a one-page or two-page synopsis.
There are so many fantastic different articles out there on this.
Ton.
We rarely are going to take all of the information out there and regurgitate it for you. We're just going to talk about the stuff that's going on, and this one in particular, it is worth your time to go do that extra research and figure out the right format and how all of this is done.
And then play with it, experiment. Take your book and put it in different synopsis forms, into different taglines and different loglines and different blurbs. And just kind of test it and see what happens. If you have your reader group in place, have them read it and see what really catches for them. Have people critique it like they would critique your chapter. Also super important.
Don't forget to make it fun, too, to get you going.
Make it fun. I know.
It's okay to be goofy and fun as you're going through this stuff. You're doing this because you love writing. You're doing this because you love your story. You're doing this because you love your character. Have fun. Not everything has to be the polished, perfect draft that's going out. Just remember what it's like to giggle, to snort, to poke fun at some atrocious trope.
Even if you do that in your synopsis, hey, treat it like you would your book. I mean, make your synopsis a first draft, second draft, third draft, and do the same thing. Just be like, crazy stuff happened here, and they're bombs, and they went exploding, and everything was nuts. And then go back on your second rounds and tweak it and be like, okay, this is actually what happened.
Don't look for the perfect words the first time getting this stuff out, the first time trying it. Just words.
Yeah.
Just words are okay for your first draft.
Just so that you know what the heck is happening. What's most important in your story, it doesn't matter what those words say, as long as you're getting the meaning of it down. So if you're completely goofing off, that's fun for you and that's going to make you write it, then do it. Because it is so much easier to just look at it and be like, oh, that's what my story's about. And then be able to tweak it into a working synopsis.
Most importantly, just keep going.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
No.
All right. I think we are out of time. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Are we doing a challenge or no?
Well, I would very much like to have people give me a tagline or a logline of their favorite movie.
That's a great idea. I like it.
If they're so inclined, I would be interested in reading them. You can go goofy or you can go serious. I will enjoy them either way. I want to try and guess movies.
I love it.
All right, keep punching those keys, do your thing, and don't be afraid to step outside that box. Just don't stop. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And if you liked this episode, please subscribe and give us that clickable 5-star love.
Got writer questions or feedback? Reach out through our website. And until next time, make sure to punch the keys.